This episode is brought to you by Wellness Resources, a family-owned and operated nutritional supplement company providing the highest quality, clinically formulated supplements since 1985. Now, I've been using these supplements for so many years now. I use them for myself, for friends and family, and for clients. Now, there are three main reasons why I think you should check out Wellness Resources supplements. Number one, they're a family-owned and operated company, so you don't have to worry about a big corporation coming in and adulterating the supplements. Number two, they are fanatics about quality. They only use the highest clinically formulated ingredients that they know work. And number three, they use the forms that are actually activated and the body can actually absorb. This is critical if you want to support your health. So if you want to know what supplement company I recommend, it's Wellness Resources at myvitaminresource.com. Check out all their monthly specials and their great resources on health. Again, Wellness Resources at myvitaminresource.com.
This program is for informational purposes only. It is not intended to treat, diagnose, or cure any illness. Please speak with your doctor when starting a new health program.
A warm welcome to another edition of the Wellness Talk podcast. I am George Batista, your host and your wellness advocate. Thank you so much for joining me this week, as always. Today's discussion is going to be more focused on the nutrition side of things, and nutrition in terms of optimizing nutrition through orthomolecular nutrition versus the conventional nutrition standards. And for those of you who don't know what orthomolecular nutrition is, I'll discuss it more as we go, but it's basically optimizing your nutrition in terms of giving you the dosage of nutrition that's optimal for your health, okay, versus the conventional side of things or public health, where they're just really focused on nutritional deficiencies, but they're not really focused on, again, optimizing health with the actual amounts and the dosages that you really need or that the body needs to really function optimally, okay? So I'm going to approach that in a couple of ways. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pay homage to a gentleman who is one of my heroes in nutrition who recently passed away. His name is Dr. Bruce Ames. And Dr. Ames is a trailblazer he was a trailblazer in biochemistry, but he was also passionate about nutrition and health. He was a scientist, worked for decades as a scientist, and he really did a lot of great work. He recently passed away at the ripe old age of 95. So this is going to be based off of an article from orthomolecular.org. It's by Dr. Richard Cheng, and the article is titled "The Miracles of High-Dose Orthomolecular Nutrition, a Tribute to Dr. Bruce Ames." So I'm going to tell you about Dr. Ames, exactly what were his concepts, what are the things that he talked about, and which I've mentioned on this show before, and why you should really pay attention to the things that he talked about in terms of nutrition, because he really had some great revelations, great ideas, and great experiments as well. And, really, really good stuff. And then from there, I'm going to highlight another article, again, from the same website, orthomolecular.org, another article, again, by Dr. Richard Cheng. And this is key differences between conventional nutrition and orthomolecular nutrition, the role of dosing and regulatory challenges. So that's going to be the key discussion today, because again, there is a difference between both. So we're going to highlight the differences, and again, why you should really pay attention to orthomolecular nutrition in terms of really getting to optimal doses of nutrition, because at the end of the day, that's what runs your metabolism. And again, the studies indicate when you approach nutrition in that way, it actually puts you at less risk for all types of diseases and stuff like that. And then we're going to compare it to the conventional way of doing things in terms of just looking at deficiencies and why those recommended daily allowances haven't changed, right? If you really think about it. And that's a big key. And now hopefully, again, with the new administration coming in and RFK Jr. coming in, hopefully maybe things will change, and maybe they'll take a look at the recommended daily allowances regarding nutrition and food and stuff like that. And maybe they will make some recommendations on how to optimize those. So, obviously that remains to be seen. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. Of course, go to georgebatista.com. Review these articles for yourself. They're fully referenced, so you guys can take a look at all the references and what where it comes from. And again, thank you so much for joining me and liking and sharing and subscribing to the information and getting it out there. I really, really appreciate it. And it's an honor to provide this information to you. Okay, so let's get started. And when we start to talk about nutrition, I always like to talk about the basics first. Okay, so I'm going to look at it always through the lens of what basic nutrition does. And basic nutrition, as I've always said on this show, is what runs your metabolism. Okay, so when I say basic nutrition, that's the vitamins, the minerals, the amino acids, and the fatty acids that we need to be taking in every single day. That is what runs your metabolism, period. We would not survive without them. And this is how the human body has survived and thrived through, the thousands of years that we've been on this earth. Okay, so just keep that premise in mind as a backdrop when I'm talking about, nutrition, whether it's the orthomolecular nutrition or the public health nutrition. Okay. Now, with that said, I want to talk a little bit about Dr. Bruce Ames first, because it's important the contributions that he's made in the world of nutrition. So, as I said before, he passed away at the age of 95 just recently, but he was a trailblazer in biochemistry. But not only that, he was extremely passionate about health and nutrition. Okay. He was a distinguished member of the National Academy of Sciences, and he was a recipient of many awards, including the National Medal of Science. He was also inducted into the Orthomolecular Medicine Hall of Fame. Now, he was known, especially back in the 80s, for doing testing and showing how harmful chemicals and environmental toxins affect the human body. And he did many reports on that. There was some TV. He was even on TV. I remember him being featured on ABC regarding some of his work. Okay. And he actually came up with what's probably what he's best known for is his Ames test. That's AMES test. And it's a revolutionary tool for detecting harmful DNA damaging chemicals. But his later work in nutrition is really what cemented him as a revolutionary. So he came up with, and I've talked about it many times on this show, he came up with a theory called the triage theory, which basically proposes that when essential nutrients in your body are in short supply, the body prioritizes immediate survival over long-term health. So, for example, if you have a nutrient, let's say vitamin K, and I've talked about it before, vitamin K does many things in your body. But the two main things it does is, number one, it's responsible for blood clotting, but it's also responsible for making sure that calcium goes to the right places and it's taken out of your arteries, right? One of them is short-term survival right now, and the other one is long-term survival. So if you don't have enough vitamin K, his postulates were that the body's going to prioritize and make sure that it has enough for your survival right now. Okay, the immediate survival. So if you get cut, you don't bleed out. And if long-term it doesn't have enough to make sure calcium is in the right places, well, that's not going to kill you right now, but it could have an effect decades down the line. So essentially, that's what triage theory, and there's a lot of nuances to it, but essentially that's what it is. Okay. But Dr. Ames believed that optimizing nutrition wasn't just about avoiding deficiencies. And he was he was kind of critical in terms of public health on that. It was more about thriving. He advocated for using high doses of nutrients to repair cells, to support energy production, to strengthen the immune system, and even reduce the risk of disease like heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and stuff like that. So his message was basically nutrition is the foundation of health and longevity. Now, another thing that he was very much known for was highlighting the 40 vitamins and minerals that are essential for the human body to function. And he also emphasized their synergistic roles in just maintaining optimal health. Okay, so I'm going to go over just some of the stuff that he talked about, because again, it's really stuff that you want to take a look at in terms of just basic nutrition. So he explained that micronutrients do not work in isolation, which is one of the things that a lot of the public health critics talk about nutritionists and say, oh, you're isolating vitamins and minerals and that type of thing. And I've never said that at all, even on this show. Okay. So for example, he talked about magnesium. He said magnesium activates enzymes necessary for DNA repair and energy metabolism. He also talked about B vitamins, right? That all work together, all the B vitamins, and you put folate in there as well. They all work together and they're essential for the methylation process that regulate gene expression and prevent DNA damage. He also talked about vitamin C and vitamin E because they act together to neutralize free radicals, protecting cells from oxidative stress. He also talked about addressing subclinical deficiencies. So he stressed that even mild deficiencies in any single nutrient can disrupt these pathways and actually, make your health worse over time. He talked about deficiencies in selenium and zinc, how they can weaken the antioxidant network, leaving cells vulnerable to damage despite adequate levels of other nutrients. That's huge right there. Okay. So, and this is one of the things that you have to really think about in terms of just basic nutrition. Just because you have an abundance of the other nutrients, even if you are missing one, again, like selenium or zinc or whatever the case may be, that can still wreck your health. This is why you have to have an abundance of everything. All the nutrition is key in this case. Okay. Number 3, he championed comprehensive supplementation to ensure that all micronutrients are present in sufficient amounts. And this is what lines up with triage theory, because he says that if you don't have enough of the specific nutrients that can address all the issues and all the things that the nutrient does, then that's why the body's going to ration it. So 2 things that he talked about. He said chronic deficiencies lead to DNA damage, mitochondrial dysfunction, and accelerated aging. But he also said that comprehensive supplementation helps to address these deficiencies, promoting both short-term health and long-term vitality. Now, in talking about triage theory, I want to highlight one of his quotes here because it pretty much sums up the whole concept of what triage theory is actually about. And he's addressing DNA damage and how triage theory works in this. So again, this is a direct quote from Bruce Ames. He says, "The triage theory provides a mechanistic rationale for such damage. Shortage of a nutrient triggers a built-in rationing mechanism that allocates the scarce nutrient to proteins needed for immediate survival at the expense of those needed for long-term survival." He calls them longevity proteins. And he's done work on this. He's actually had scientists in his lab who have actually worked on these theories and have actually proven. There's been papers on it. And if you do some research on him, you will see that there's websites even dedicated to him that actually have some of his papers that are printed, and you can kind of read for yourself regarding his theories on that. So very interesting stuff on it. But at the end of the day, it makes so much sense. And like I said, he's proven it through these papers and through the scientists. So from that, let's take a look at what orthomolecular nutrition actually is. So this type of nutrition focuses on providing the body with optimal levels of essential nutrients to achieve the best results possible. Okay, so it aims to prevent acute deficiencies like scurvy, for example, or even rickets from vitamin D deficiency and stuff like that. But it goes a step further because it addresses the nutrient levels that are needed for longevity. So it's not just about preventing the deficiency acutely at that stage. It looks at preventing the deficiency long term. Okay, and this is dose dependent, right? So let's look at some of the high dose nutrients that can transform your health, basically. Okay, so when you look at the big ones, vitamin C, vitamin E, antioxidants, all these types of things. Remember, vitamin C, what does it do? It boosts your immune system. It fights infections. It supports your skin health through collagen production. You have vitamin E, of course, that protects your heart, right? Helps protect against heart disease by preventing damage to blood vessels and stuff like that. And one of the things that Bruce Ames talked about was folic acid deficiency. And it was interesting because he talks about folic acid deficiency being the same as radiation. Literally, when you take, let's say you take a cell and you expose it to radiation, and then you take a folic acid deficiency and you look at both of them, they look the same. So literally, folic acid deficiency is the same as like literally radiating a cell. So that was very interesting in his research. Also, Orthomolecular nutrition also helps to, boost energy production. So, looking at B vitamins, magnesium, coenzyme Q10, obviously they support mitochondria, and they improve mitochondrial function, and they enhance energy levels but reduce fatigue, and they do it from the inside out. Another thing you could take a look at is, high dose vitamin D. What does it do? Helps to regulate the immune system. Zinc helps to support the production of infection fighting cells. But together, when they work together, they really help to fortify the body's defenses against illness. Now, another thing that Dr. Bruce Ames says is, he said vitamin D activates serotonin production in the brain. Okay. That's another important piece to vitamin D. So again, when you look at what Bruce Ames talked about and you look at this orthomolecular nutrition, that's really, this is where the game changes, right? Because this is where we really start to see the fortification and the actual nutrition that the human body actually needs to deal with the stresses of life. Because remember, it's not just about having the optimal nutrition, it's also having optimal nutrition that deals with the everyday stresses, the physical and the chemical and emotional stresses, right? So that's why, just relying on the RDA is, in my opinion, not enough. And let's take a look at now the RDA, or the recommended daily allowances in public health, versus something like orthomolecular nutrition. So when we're looking at conventional nutrition, let's take a look at what are their philosophies in terms of population-based guidelines, right? So basically, their conventional nutrition is designed to meet the general population's needs by preventing deficiencies and maintaining basic health. But that's where it stops, right? You have to remember that these guidelines have been established a long time ago. You're looking at the guidelines for vitamin C, vitamin D, and these types of things. They've never really been updated, and they've never been changed. And the sad part about it is because the amount of environmental toxins that we're dealing with every single day, the amount of stresses that we're dealing with every single day, and all the diseases that are running around and all the stuff that's running around, right, that we're all trying to fight, that's increasing regularly. But yet the guidelines of our nutrition, our dietary nutrition intake is not. Big problem, okay? So its primary tools are standardized guidelines like what's called DRIs or RDAs, which provide recommendations for daily nutrient intake. But again, it's very minimal. Now, their dosing approach is moderate and universal. So their nutrient recommendations are established to prevent deficiency-related diseases of the majority of the population. The levels are conservative. They're designed to avoid toxicity and adverse events in the general public. That's kind of how they look at it. Also, they're focused on deficiency prevention, but not optimization. So the dosing is sufficient to prevent conditions, again, like scurvy, like rickets, but it fails to optimize health or address chronic disease. Now, you're going to have some positives and negatives to this approach. So let's look at their positives. So they're definitely going to be effective at preventing widespread deficiencies in diverse populations. Okay. So, when you're looking at scurvy, when you look at vitamin D, for example, you're not seeing a lot of people with scurvy. You're not seeing a lot of people with rickets, for example, right? Because you're fortifying a lot of the food and a lot of stuff out there with these things. Even though I spoke with somebody just not long ago who told me that when they looked at their vitamin D blood test, it was 4. Literally, she said it was 4. That blew my mind. I've never seen a vitamin D that low. So this person was very, very close to actually having rickets. Think about that. Okay. So again, it's effective at widespread, addressing widespread deficiencies. The other positive to it is that it's simple and accessible because it makes it feasible for public health initiatives. So they can come up with all different types of initiatives based off of that. But now when you're looking at the limitations, number one, they don't address individual variations in nutrient requirements, which is huge because that's what nutritionists and dietitians, that's what they address, individual needs. Number two, it lacks therapeutic potency for managing chronic conditions or optimizing health. And again, that's what you want to do. You want to optimize health. There's a big difference between stopping a deficiency and optimizing health. And that's where you're seeing the line here between the two. Now, conversely, let's take a look at orthomolecular's approach, and then you'll kind of see the clear differences between the two. Again, because orthomolecular nutrition's approach is providing the body with the optimal amounts, right? It recognizes that many conditions arise from nutrient imbalances, oxidative stress, or inflammation, which require targeted interventions. Okay. Number two, let's look at the dosing approach. Orthomolecular nutrition, what they do is they look at high targeted doses. Okay. So orthomolecular nutrition often prescribes doses far exceeding the recommended daily allowances based on scientific evidence of therapeutic effects rather than population averages. Okay. This is going to be a completely different approach. So when you're looking at vitamin C, for example, mega doses can be used for immune support or even cancer treatment. That's tons of that in the literature. Magnesium, high doses to alleviate muscle cramps, hypertension, and metabolic disorders. Things like, vitamin B3 or niacin, they use therapeutic doses for cholesterol management and even mental health. And even vitamin D3, high doses have been used for autoimmune diseases. So also on top of that, you have individualized protocols. Okay. So factors such as age, genetics, lifestyle, and even health conditions determine the dosing, which emphasizes personalized care. And this is where I think medicine really needs to go. Because again, when you're looking at mainstream medicine, it's a one size fits all approach. Yeah, obviously there's different dosing in terms of when you're looking at pharmaceuticals, right? Because not everybody's going to get the same dose, but a lot of people are going to get the same medications. And those medications are going to have side effects, and some people are going to have them, and some people are not. However, when you're looking at nutrition, right? When you're looking at, let's say a nutritionist is working with somebody, not only will the dose vary, but the supplement itself may vary. You may give someone an isolated supplement in one case, but in another case, you may give somebody a comprehensive approach where they need a lot of other things. Again, it's very targeted, specific to the individual. That's its big strength here. And then we have number three, the role of healthcare supervision. Okay. So when you look at monitoring safety, high doses require careful monitoring to avoid toxicity or nutrient imbalances. So this is where nutritionists, this is where functional medicine doctors and naturopaths are going to monitor their patients or their clients to make sure that they're not getting a toxicity off of high dose, whatever it is they're getting. You're going to adjust the protocols. So regular evaluations are going to ensure that therapies are effective and tailored to evolving health needs. So again, that person's needs are going to vary as long as you're working for them, so working with them. So maybe in the beginning, you may have them at high doses of whatever. And then as time goes along, you may have to tailor that dose back. So again, this is where the monitoring comes in big time. And then on top of that, you have an integrative approach because it's often combined with conventional treatments to enhance outcomes. So let's say, again, a naturopath or functional medicine doctor who can also maybe prescribe, pharmaceutical medications, they can use both. So they can use the pharmaceutical in conjunction with the nutrition and actually have even a better outcome if needed. And then eventually, if they can tailor that person and, eventually get that person off the pharmaceutical, they can do that, right? So that's a big deal there. And then the last piece of it, what are the strengths and limitations to this approach? The strengths are they demonstrate the therapeutic effects for chronic diseases and conditions. They address the biochemical individuality and root causes of health issues. Now, the limitations are it requires specialized knowledge and professional oversight. Again, this is when you're working with nutritionists, functional medicine doctors, naturopaths, or whoever, somebody that is really an expert in that type of thing. And then also, obviously, the folks in these roles get criticized for lacking large-scale randomized clinical trials despite extensive observational and anecdotal evidence. So again, because mainstream medical criticizes the nutritionists and the naturopaths, they say, well, you guys, you don't have these large trials. Well, no, we don't have these large trials because those trials need hundreds of thousands of dollars to do. And mainstream medical is not going to do them. They're not concerned about those types of trials. So obviously, the nutritionists and the naturopaths and those folks have to do it, person by person. That's kind of how that works. Now, if you're a regular listener to this show, you know that about a month ago, I did a program on discussing a paradigm shift that I feel that we need in healthcare. And again, looking at more of the individualized needs of people versus the collective. So if if you want to, get more information on that, definitely check it out. It's called a paradigm shift in health. Just go to georgebatista.com and just search it, or you can look through. I think it was about 3 or 4 episodes ago, but I'm going to just address just a couple of the points that I had from that show, which I think, again, we need, and I hope we're going to see more of when RFK takes, his position in the administration and then the new administration comes in. So when you're looking at a case for a paradigm shift, what is it for? Basically to address the limitations of conventional nutritional and regulatory constraints. Okay. So the shift would involve, number one, recognizing individual needs. So moving beyond the one size fits all guidelines to embrace biochemical individuality. Number two, it would need reforming the regulation. So allowing greater flexibility in the formulation and nutritional products, enabling them to meet therapeutic requirements. Okay. And, bringing up these RDA levels. You definitely got to do that. Number three, promoting integrative approaches. So encouraging collaboration between conventional and orthomolecular practitioners to provide comprehensive care. And then number four, educating consumers. So raising awareness about the limitations of conventional supplements and the potential benefits of professionally supervised orthomolecular nutrition. This is a huge comprehensive approach, but the problem with this, you're going to get a lot of pushback when you try to do something like this because there's so much money involved, so much corruption involved in public health, and you've got to address those things first. You have to, because that is a train that has left the station. So in order to get to this thing, you really have to gut public health in many different ways. And this is, again, what a lot of the public health agencies are very afraid of in terms of RFK coming in and making changes, and just some of the other doctors that are coming in and making changes as well. But this is the only way you're going to do it. You're going to have to address it from the root cause. And if you can get a melding of orthomolecular nutrition, right, integrative approach between that and the pharmaceuticals. I'm not saying pharmaceuticals should be eliminated. I've never said that. They have their place. But if you can have, an approach of both, I think we will be much healthier in it. Because remember, we don't have a free medical market. And when I say free, I don't mean free that you don't pay anything, meaning the freedom to choose what you want, right? Because if I wanted to get a vitamin C treatment versus some kind of pharmaceutical, I have to pay out of pocket to get that because that's not going to be covered by insurance. But if I wanted to get a pharmaceutical or if I had to be on some kind of, medication, then of course it's covered, or at least most of it is covered except for co-pays or whatever the case may be. So this is where I say we don't have a free medical market. And if we want to get healthier, that needs to change. That's the biggest shift that needs to happen. So I hope this gives you a better understanding of the orthomolecular approach to nutrition versus the conventional approach, and why I feel that the orthomolecular approach has way more advantages in terms of just personalization and therapeutic potency. So, definitely take a look at that. Also, hope this gives you an understanding of Dr. Bruce Ames and what he brought to the table. He was just an amazing scientist, and he had some amazing ideas. And I think you should definitely take a look at his work as well, because it should be celebrated for what, he brought to the world. So I want to thank you for joining me this week. As always, it's a pleasure and an honor to bring you this information. Again, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and as always, control your health. See you next time.